You say that whenever we talk about hair care, everything starts from the scalp. Like your hair care, your hair health, everything is directly interlinked to your scalp health. Why is that?
I mean, it's fairly logical, right? It's the soil on which the tree is growing. And the flower and the fruit the tree bears is only going to be on how well nutrition the soil is, right? If you have a disproportion around how much manure and how much mud is there in the soil, you will have a tree which is lifeless and limp and maybe short-lived. And that's what's happening with your hair. If you have a good, healthy scalp, which is breathing, which is transferring nutrition all the way down to, your length, then that's what's going to define everything. And any issues which lead to larger hair issues generally start at the scalp, right? Chronic conditions of hair fall leading to premature balding or scalp sensitivity or dandruff, chronic dandruff, all this is scalp related. That is what in the long run kind of transfers to how your hair feels as well. Because a lot of times to treat those scalp conditions, you start compromising on what your hair is supposed to feel like. So to me, you have a good scalp, you'll have good hair, right? Of course, there's a external angle to how your hair can maybe feel damaged or brittle or dry, which is obviously going to be on the basis of whether you're doing a lot of treatments to it, whether you're doing a lot of chemical treatments to it. If you're exposing it too much to dry atmosphere, if you're exposing it to the wrong products, of course, that is separate. But the overall, as a science, your scalp is what your hair is.
So what does a bad scalp or an unhealthy scalp look or feel like? Personal experience, there was a point, like those hair growth serums that you get, right? You always feel like a very stinging sensation whenever you apply it on your scalp. So is that stinging sensation one of the symptoms of a bad or unhealthy scalp? Are there more? Like, what does it look or feel like?
Not necessary. So many times you apply a serum on your face and the initial sensation is a bit of a twinge, it's prickly, but it generally settles down. If a product is continuing to irritate you beyond the 30 to 45 second, if it's starting to feel hot, if it's starting to feel warm, if your scalp is starting to go in that direction, then yes, it is beyond just the impact of the product. Then the product is not suiting you. So the first sign is obviously how warm it starts to feel, right? And that's generally what happens on your face as well. If you apply a product and you're starting to feel warm and you're starting to, build a little bit of a redness around it.
Yeah.
If you're starting to build a little bit of a inflammation around it, it's almost the same with the scalp as well. Along with a fair amount of itching. You'll kind of keep doing that. You'll only feel satisfied when you've kind of scratched it, right? So, I mean, I think it's what it is across your body. If you apply a product and you keep itching, what will happen? It will start to become red. It will then start to build a rash. It will then start to maybe become a boil. Maybe it will become a wound. And that's exactly what will happen on the scalp as well. Because it is filled with so much hair, it may be less visible. But you might start seeing it along your hairline. You'll start seeing it on your neckline. You'll start seeing it on your ear. So intense reactions or intense irritation can come to those areas. So it's happened to me. I read long back, I read somewhere in Hollywood, they wanted to some actress wanted to go absolutely free of any packaged product in terms of hair care. So she used tea water as a final conditioner or something. My memory is failing me here, but I got quite excited and I tried it, and it was horror for me. It was horror for me. I was like, oh my God, I'm embracing all the packaged products at the moment.
Oh,
Just because it's coming out of a bottle does not mean it's
natural does not always
yes,
mean that it's
yes.
beneficial.
So just because it's coming out of a bottle does not mean it's taboo or it's bad for you. It I think a lot of science goes into how a product is created, and there are some fantastic brands which are very, very close to the promise of and very committed to the promise of being as environment friendly as possible, as natural as possible, as chemical free as possible. So you can look at those alternatives. So yeah, that was just an example. It's just about being able to analyze and understand that yes, this is not suiting me.
So like, so one, obviously the most predominant issue during monsoon is dandruff. And like in those ads, right, you see when you scratch your head, it's like dandruff all over. Is that a sign of like a bad scalp health? Like, does dandruff mean bad scalp?
I mean, dandruff is like it's just a normal infection. It's not like the end of the world that you have dandruff. Persistent dandruff, yes, can lead to bad scalp, more from the point because you tend to again itch a lot. You can it can build into something which can be infection. But if you're treating dandruff within time, it doesn't need to become a chronic infection. But it's not like there's a permanent cure and you're free of dandruff. You have to be mindful of that as well. It can come with any weather change. It can come with any product change. It can come with with your lifestyle, with so many unhygienic tools being used, with the product build up. It can happen with anything. But it doesn't need to be frowned upon. It doesn't need to be something which is stressing you out endlessly or giving you sleepless nights. You get a simple treatment done within good treatments of dandruff within 2-3 sittings should give you tremendous relief. You should be mindful of the fact that you don't consistently keep using those dandruff products. So even if you do have certain scalp cleansing products, scalp detox products at home, then use them with caution, and because it then becomes a vicious cycle. You've reached the stage where it's sorted the problem out for you. After that, you're over exfoliating, and then you're removing the natural oils, the natural hydration of the scalp. Then you're causing the irritation. The irritation is then causing infection. So you're unnecessarily getting into a loop of pretty bad vicious, a bad vicious cycle. So you have to be very mindful of how much exfoliation does the scalp need.
So this kind of brings me to another question. Last year or even now, to address all of these dandruff issues, something started trending in the Western, obviously, and then even the Indian market got influenced. That is applying glycolic acid, the glycolic toner that you apply to your face. The same glycolic toner is applied to your scalp to get rid of, potentially it says product buildup, dandruff, and basically just to purify your scalp is what they claim that glycolic acid toner does to your scalp. So what is your take on that?
I mean, I just feel how clogged or dirty is your scalp to be.
By an acid.
Yeah. I mean, I have never had to use all these products, and I think my scalp and my hair is doing largely fine. The thousands of generations before us never even heard of apple cider vinegar or glycolic acid. And I think they've lived all right.
They're better hair.
Right? And of course, I am about keeping up with the times, but I think there is one aspect of it being scientific, well-researched products, and then there is one which is just, oh, this is in trend, let's just try it. Let's just pick up anything from the shelf and start using it. I think we should, our brains should kind of tell us when we are going a little beyond a basic sense of intelligence and logic.
Yeah, makes sense.
Right? So, no glycolic acid for me. I don't have very strong views on a topic like this where I say no, absolutely not or anything like that. But it's strong enough to say that I think it's
an unnecessary step.
Yeah, and I mean, there is a pH balance. And generally the pH balance is restored with a decent good set of products. You don't go over acidic, neither do you go over alkaline. Right? And these days, even your dietitians and your nutritionists are telling you that because you have gone into a obsessive fad and you've just started consuming some product endlessly, the system is getting irritated. The system is resisting and rebelling because you've disturbed the balance which is around. So anything over acidic, anything over alkaline is disturbing your system. Unless you already have a condition which is over acidic and you're trying to bring it back to the balance. If there is such problem, there are products to sort that issue out for you. So I personally don't think we should be experimenting with random things like this.
Makes sense. So one last question for today's segment, monsoon frizz, like on the strands, it's such an issue, right? Like it's like a static on your hair just becomes like a beehive sort of situation. So what do you recommend for monsoon frizz, like the lengths, like to defrizz it, or maybe even like reduce the frizz to a certain level? And what can be every day, a salon visit is not possible every day, right? So what can we do we ourselves at home on a day-to-day basis to combat the monsoon frizz?
A large part of what you do for your frizz is your daily care routine, right? And your hair is expanding because it's losing moisture, right? So you basically need to work with products which are keeping that moisture intact. So it's a good time of the season to transition to products which are more hydrating in nature rather than very heavy, intense products, because they are not doing enough to seal the moisture in your hair. So it's a great time to move to leave-in conditioners which are gel-based, move to serums, light serums, not very alcohol-based products. So not very strong finishing sprays, not very heavy mousses, but lighter, cream consistency, gel consistency is a great variant, so to speak, right? So any routine which is a home care routine, I mean, we've been saying this for the longest and it's not specific to just the monsoons, should always be a shampoo, condition and a leave-in product. If you're working heat, then work a leave-in which is heat resistant as well. If you're limiting heat, and I do recommend that you limit heat during the season as much as you can. So if you're limiting heat, then work with any good leave-in conditioner. Like I said, it can be serum based, it can be cream, light cream based, it can be gel based, which is going to, curly hair respond beautifully to gel based products. And hair, wavy hair like me, I work generally a combination of cream and serum because it's thicker, it needs that much to tame. There are excellent products which are made in the market these days which are only for taming, and that's a great direction to go towards. There are some fabulous products which are being made only for flyaway. So they help in that taming and they help in kind of, compressing that mass which tends to build up. Avoid over combing, constantly combing, because that's what's creating the friction. And that's what's also leading to expansion, right? So use cotton-based material for drying. So it's always been a favorite of mine. The Kerala Torth is a beautiful material to use for your hair as a drying agent, right? Limit yourself from heat, like I already said. Avoid doing very abrasive, rough washing. When you step out, especially if you're somebody who rides or is in an auto, then always have a protection around your hair, because the atmosphere is obviously what's impacting you the most. Always have something which is going to support you in between washes. So what is your second day solution between the two washes that you might be doing is an important consideration as well, because you may be able to map that day out, but the next morning when you wake up, your hair might be kind of all over. So it's just about kind of reactivating those products and bringing the moisture back into the hair, which can be a much milder leave-in agent, right? So I think some of this is what is really helpful to support you during the difficult times of this season.
So, do you suggest like day one can be hair wash, condition, and obviously like your protecting sprays or your protecting serums, and then day two, like you said, when you wake up the next day, it's all
Day two is reactivation. Yes.
reactivation. So, what products do you recommend for reactivation?
So if, let's say, you're using a leave-in conditioner which is cream-based, have a leave-in conditioner which is spray-based. So it's much lighter. It's just pumping in the product, right? So that becomes a great in between the 2 days kind of a support. And the third day, you're back to your wash and you're back to slightly heavier consistency. But you have to understand that on day two, you still have the product in your hair. You've not washed it off. So you're just reactivating it. If you don't want to invest in like a leave-in conditioner which is spray and a leave-in conditioner which is cream and a serum, if it's too much, then just a conditioner that you work with, take it in a spray bottle, add water to it, 1:1, fill minimal quantities so that you can make fresh batches as often as possible. Shake it out really well. That's your good at-home leave-in conditioner that you've created for yourself. And just spray it on. But this is mainly for the length. You cannot keep spraying all of this onto your scalp, because then you're leading to a lot of product buildup and hence all the scalp conditions that we already spoke about.
Makes sense.
And I mean, observe what works for your hair. My hair often looks better on day 2 instead of day 1, right? It's tamer, it's got a little shape in it and stuff like that. So maybe if you're stepping out, if you already have a agenda of going out, then maybe map your washes accordingly. And I mean, these are little things that you can take care of. If you intend to go out on Saturday and your hair looks better on day 2, then wash on Friday.
Makes sense.
That will help to minimize the amount of effort you have to put into making your hair look look good.
So we've come to the end of this segment. There was a lot of information, overload of information, good overload, of course. If you had to summarize everything, like when it comes to monsoon care, monsoon beauty care, if you have to summarize everything and just like quickly give 3 pointers, what would those be?
Look after your scalp. Be observant of how your scalp is responding. You will have to resort to a separate scalp and a separate length treatment. And I feel avoid overindulging in washing constantly, whether it is your skin or it is your hair. And I mean, for the skin, just because it feels sweaty and things, first of all, don't skip on steps like moisturizing, because you're then again creating the vicious cycle for your skin. But maybe move to products which are lighter in consistency. So again, gel-based moisturizers, cleansers which are much lighter in consistency, which don't sap your skin of the moisture, but are doing mild cleansing as well. If you use makeup, then move to much lighter consistency of product. Keep blotting paper handy. Work with products which are not very cakey and powdery in nature, because they will definitely break. And then when you're out, people will be able to see the patches of makeup on your face. To me, at least for the face, the best suggestion and guidance is go minimal, right? Like I said, you're already blessed in this weather with a naturally dewy, glass skin effect. So make the most of it, right? Just use the basic minimal amount required to cover maybe concern areas. But in that also, move away from very heavy, lumpy, cakey products. Work liquid, work light, work products which are more multi-purpose in nature, right? It's a great time to bring out your cream blushers, your cream shadows, because it's going to go with the mood of being dewy, and very peachy, very girly. It's a perfect season for that.
And never skip sunscreen.
Of course. I mean, that's not relevant to whether it is summer, winter, indoor, outdoor.
But still, some people feel like since it's cloudy, the sun's not out, then why should I wear sunscreen?
No, even when it's dark, the sun is there. It's there in some part of the planet. So your UV, A, B, etc. is not really linked to direct sunlight. They say even lights are giving out.
Like your phone screens,
even they are giving out.
Yeah.
So once a gardener gave me a tip. He said, when you use indoor plants, just keep the light on. So even the plants are responding to
the light.
The process of photosynthesis is happening even with artificial light. So I'm sure it's the same for human bodies as well. So I think sunscreen is, it should not even be said anymore.
So thank you so much, Swati. And I really hope to see you again so that we can discuss more, part more information. I really hope that you enjoyed this session thoroughly.
Yes, thank you so much, madam. It was lovely interacting with you.
Yeah.
And to everyone out there, I think monsoon is a beautiful season. Embrace it, enjoy it. Don't get hassled by these little issues. It's a season to kind of really go out, enjoy your monsoon parties, enjoy the rain dances, and just embrace the weather for what it's bringing forth.